What's up guys, this is Alex from King of the Gym, and I'm out here at the Force USA headquarters for a few days, taking a look at a bunch of their new equipment. This video, I'm gonna be reviewing the Force USA C20, but I use the term review kind of loosely because when I do videos, I prefer to take a longer term approach and kind of see how things pan out over time. That said, you'll still get a lot of good insights, kind of my first impressions to see what this machine has to offer. And fingers crossed, I may actually be getting this piece into my gym. But if you're not subscribed, definitely do so to see that video when it comes, but also to see a bunch of other videos from my trip here at Force USA. That said, let's get into it. Real quick, I'm back here at the home gym and want to give a shameless plug. In case you do buy the C20 based off my review, I have a coupon code and affiliate link down below in the description to help you save some extra cash while supporting my channel. But definitely watch the full video because there's a lot of details I cover that you should consider before making a purchase decision. So let's get back to the video. So to start out, I want to just give you a brief overview of what the C20 is. It is obviously an all-in-one trainer. You got the power rack on the outside, or half rack technically. You got the Smith machine right behind it, and in the back you have the cables in the center for low rows and the cables up top for lat pull down. It's a dual stack system. It has 200 pounds default, which can be upgraded to 250 or 300, but that's just the broad overview. Next, I'm gonna take you into each feature and just give you my insights on those as I go. All right, so kind of starting in the back of the rack, I just wanna point out that there is the center pulleys, the cables that go up to the lat pull down and to the low row. What you need to know about these is basically if you use one of the dual cables at a time, then that's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. If you connect them like with the banana clip, then you're going to get the 1-to-1 ratio, and that's going to come in handy for, you know, your big compound movements, rows and lat pull downs. That's when you're going to really want the 1-to-1 ratio. Just want to kind of break up the video right here and make some clarifications when it comes to the pulley ratio, because this is an area where I think there's going to be a lot of confusion. I say that because I was confused when it came to this. I was reading the website description and kind of testing different things, and I just wasn't sure because there's a lot of different ratios on here, and connecting different pulleys together changes things. So what the engineer told me when I asked him, he dumbed it down for me. And so this one I knew. If you have 100 pounds on here, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, so it feels like 50 pounds. This is also a 2-to-1 ratio. Same with this one. When you take the banana clip and put them together, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. So 100 pounds selected feels like 100 pounds. Now, in the back is where it kind of changes up a little bit. This is in the way, but there's 2 different cables down there. Each of those is a 1-to-1. And you put those together, that makes it a 1-to-2. So if you have 100 pounds selected on each of the weight stacks, the feel weight is 200 pounds. So that means that you can have up to 600 pounds of feel weight when using both of those low row cables together. And that actually is where it comes in handy if you go with the sliding bench, which has the leg press plate attachment here. You can use potentially a lot of weight, and I want to kind of demo that and how it works. So I already have it set up for leg press, and you can also set this up for hack squats, but I'm just going to show leg press here, and I'll put it at a reasonable weight, 150 on each stack. So that's going to be 300 pounds of feel weight. And you just push off like that and rep it out. There's a little bit of movement with the plate itself, but it's not bad once you get the set going. Oof. Oof. So you can also adjust the angle of the plate depending on your ankle mobility preferences, and you can also adjust the bench starting position, and you can adjust the angle of the seat as well. So this is a potential alternative to having something like, say, the compact leg press and hack squat machine, which is what I currently have in my home gym. The foot plate itself is a good design. It's angled, and it has that upper portion too that you can use if you want to sit on a bench while doing rows. So if we look closer at the foot plate and the cables here, here's one of the banana clips that kind of comes with it, so that this is how you get that 1-to-1 ratio by connecting it here. And the low row plate does come out, so you can extend it or retract it as needed, depending on your body type. Now, the one thing here, I would have preferred like a swivel link, so you don't get any weird twisting when you attach certain attachments, but that's something you can always get third party for very cheap. All right, so as you can see here at the top, I got the banana clip connected here, and then to that I have the actual attachment. And in this case, you know, you wouldn't need a swivel link because this attachment happens to work well with it. But let's say you had a third-party one where the piece that connects is rotated, then you get some twisting action. That's just where that swivel link would come in handy. Now, if I get down and do a couple of test reps, you can see that at my height, I got just enough range of motion to hit full stretch and get a very vertical line of pull, by the way, which is great. But if you were taller, had longer arms, then you might need more range of motion, which is kind of one of the negatives of having this type of setup. But there is a pretty easy workaround for that, which would be just taking the banana clip off and connecting it like so. If I can do that like this, and you're able to get more range of motion. And again, this is kind of a situation where you would want that swivel link, but you do gain notably more range of motion this way. Another aspect of this I want to point out is the pulleys themselves rotate, and this also goes the same as on the low row setup. The pulleys there also rotate like this, and that's great because especially if you're doing unilateral work, you know, you got a D handle on each of these and you're pulling like inwards or at a different angle, you're not going to be locked into that fixed path. The pulley's going to move with you. So I want to talk a little bit more about the weight stacks. Like I mentioned, default, they come with 200 pounds. You can upgrade it to 250 or 300. The stack right here has the max weight of 300. I love that it can go up that heavy. It just really lets even the strongest lifters use it effectively. Here you have two built-in mini band pegs at the top, and then at the bottom you have two large heavy-duty band pegs here that you can slide in like I had it here, or you can go from the back and put it in the other way. So that's great if you want to do some accommodating resistance training with bands. I want to point out this at the top. This is the adder weight, which you just, when you want it, you release it from the top with the pop pin bring it down to the stack, and it rests on top. I did notice a very small amount of added friction when you do that, but after adding some silicone, it really improved that, but it's just a tiny little bit you might notice, but it's not terrible. All right, so moving on as we follow the cable from the stack to the front, you have the arms, which is one of the standout features. And as you can see with the 2-to-1 ratio, you get plenty of cable travel, so that's not an issue in terms of range of motion concerns. Now, really the best part of the arms is the articulation. So you have 5 different settings from outside to in that you can rotate just like that. And then you have the height settings here. There's 4 different height settings from top to bottom. And those are all done with aluminum pop pins. And speaking of aluminum, all the pulleys on this system are also aluminum. Now, this mechanism also has kind of a feature built in where you can put it out and then turn it to the side so that it doesn't lock back in one of the holes. And you can turn it freely like that. Personally, I don't find much utility in this. I guess you could do some core exercises where having a little bit more range to freely move that might be helpful. But I personally, even if I'm doing the core exercises, would rather it just be locked in place because, in my opinion, this articulating or rotating pulley at the top gives you plenty of free range of motion there as you need it to stay in that line of pull. One little issue here, and I think Force USA has confirmed that they're addressing it or will be soon, and that is that when you turn this sometimes to go to that locked or unlocked position, it can start to come out. They will be putting Loctite on that to keep that in place, and that'll make ease of use so much more convenient. Now, I want to talk more about the height of the arm in terms of having it higher up, why that's important, especially if you're a taller user. A lot of times if you don't have this feature, for tricep extensions, for example, you won't have enough room to get that full stretch at the top of the movement. When you lift it up, you can do that and you can get full range without issue. Similarly, if we bring it down to the bottom, you can bring it right close to the floor. And that is great for all types of things where you want that extra range of motion. You can even potentially do belt squats with this. I see this as very useful for cable shrugs, which is one of my favorite cable exercises. You're not gonna kind of not have enough slack there to get the full range of motion. So I really appreciate that. There's just so many possibilities when you have those different points of articulation. Now, as you see me kind of moving this up and down, these trolleys, well, they're not trolleys, they don't have rollers in them, but they do slide very well with 2 hands. With 1 hand, there is more friction. So I don't really recommend that, even though it is technically possible. Unless you get under it, you can move it up easier. But I recommend just using a second hand when going up. When you're going down, it's very easy and efficient to use 1 hand. The handles on these are on the inside, which after using it, I prefer them on the inside. On my Rep Aries unit, they're on the outside, but I do prefer this because you don't have to go from side to side to change each pulley. Unless you want to, you can set it up that way to have the handles on the outside. So the real benefit of having the articulating arms is definitely that you are not locked in to the width of the uprights, which you would be like on my Aries 1.0 or any other similar rack. But an example of an exercise, probably the most obvious one where this is a benefit, is cable flies. So you just move them all the way to the outside and you can get that really good stretch, very similar to a real cable crossover where the towers are spaced far apart. This stretch is noticeably better than on my Aries 1.0. So I really appreciate this. It feels great. Another potential example that I really like on this one is the bicep curls, which I can do just like this, moving the arms to the inside and having the arms down so I get enough range of motion. I can just go like this, and the cables are right in line with my shoulders, and this too feels excellent. All right, so the next station I want to talk about is the Smith machine. This is easily one of my favorite highlights about this machine. It's definitely not an afterthought. You can tell they put a lot of thought into this, and it's very well designed. So probably the most important thing with Smith machines is the smoothness, and hopefully you're able to see this, but it is very smooth. I'm not sure if the mic is picking up on that, but that is buttery smooth. The knurling is also another strong point. A lot of Smith bars don't have the best knurling. This knurling, I would say, is solid. It's like medium knurl, so it won't kill your hands, but it gives you enough grip. I just would like to see a center knurl. Nothing aggressive, just something passive in case you like to squat on your Smith bar. So the other highlight about this is the range of motion. So many different Smith attachments, or Smith bars in general, have terrible range of motion on the low side. If you see this, I'm almost to a true deadlift height. It's maybe an inch more lower. I'd be able to do, like, you know, a starting position for the deadlift, but most people won't actually be deadlifting in the Smith machine, but they'll be doing RDLs, which is what I like to do. And there is plenty of range of motion for that. So this is a major win here. Range of motion on the other end is great too, because, and this was an issue on some of the G series models from Force USA, is that the Smith machine would store quite low. And then if you walk through, you might smack your head. This is not an issue. You can store it up here, and as long as you're about 6'4"-ish or shorter, you won't have an issue at all. The safety hooks, the racking mechanism, is much better also than their other Smith machines on the G series, which have kind of a peg system that takes up more area on the side and can potentially impede your range of motion with your elbows, and it just visually looks more busy. This has the hooks integrated into this steel column here, which also kind of improves the structural stability of the rack, because the whole column is supporting it as opposed to just one of those rack pegs. In general, I think this is just a very safe Smith machine. You know, all the different hooks on here, there's way more than on, you know, most just standalone Smith machines. But even compared to the other Force USA G series models, there are more starting and stop positions where you can rack if needed, or just get that perfect starting height. Additionally, if you look at the safety system, here we got the spotters, and these are on bearings. It's very smooth, and even this holder here, this is knurled, which is a nice touch. And again, with the safety, having the stopper within this encasement here just gives you extra stability and sturdiness in the event that you do have to drop the bar. This whole casing is going to absorb that impact. So, you know, it's a great system because Smith machines are awesome, but if you don't have the safety set up and a secure safety system, you might have a bad day. So obviously, I really like this Smith machine as a whole. I will say one minor improvement that I would think would make it even better would be if there was some type of numbering on the different Smith settings. So I wouldn't say to have laser cut numbers because that would mess with the structural integrity, but laser etched numbers could definitely be done and make a big difference because you got so many hooks, so it's harder to just remember which one you want to start on, but also safety-wise to make sure you actually hook both of the safeties into the right slot so that they match up on both sides. So this is obviously not just a cable system, it's an all-in-one, which means you also get a half rack in the front for all your barbell work. And what is new with this is that compared to the G series that Force USA has, this has 3x3 1-inch hole uprights with 11 gauge steel, basically matching what has kind of become the industry standard. And the awesome part about that is that you get to use attachments from third parties, especially if it's a Rogue attachment, because it is true 3x3 inch uprights with true 1-inch holes using the Imperial system. Also, the rack is 49 inches wide, just like Rogue. So if you have an attachment that spans the width of the rack from Rogue, you can use it on this. Also of note is that the holes are offset, so you can have attachments go through adjacent holes and not interfere with each other. In terms of rack height, it is 88 inches to the topmost portion, 85 inches from the top of the pull-up bar handles. And for me personally, I wish it was a little taller, but I do understand that, at least in the all-in-one market, a lot of people do want it to fit in ceilings as low as 8 feet. The pull-up bars can be moved, shifted inward and outward depending on your preferences. They're knurled. I would like to see maybe a more aggressive knurl or maybe a coating that was a little more tacky. Just comparing it to my Rep PR5000, that one doesn't have knurling, but the powder coat on it is just tackier, so it's a little bit better of a grip. But if you have any issues, you can always chalk up. The color of the rack is black, so you don't get any customization there, but a great part that I personally like is kind of the cube pattern here on the arms. Also, you'll see that on the spotter arms and even on the side of the rack. So there's definitely no shortage of attachments and accessories when it comes to the C20. I want to talk about all of them, but I'll start with the primary rack attachments, which of course is the J-hooks and the spotter arms. So these are definitely unique and innovative, which I really appreciate. And Force USA has kind of come up with a different way to do both of these attachments with the same mechanism. And the idea is to make them as secure as possible. So traditionally, J-hooks, spotter arms, they work by swinging them on and off to take them on and off the rack. This works differently. You just put it through like a side mount style, and it's more secure because there's this kind of indented ring around this peg inside that once you put it through, it's able to depress down into the hole, and it's prevented from falling off. No matter how hard you shake it, you basically have to lift up and take it out that way. So the benefit of that is that if you're like me and you sometimes, you're on the floor and you use your J hooks to pull yourself up, and if they're facing the wrong way, it can swing out on you. Same thing if you have the J hooks on the bar and you really rip it to the side, the J hooks can potentially swing. Same thing goes for the spotter arms. I also use those to pull myself up, and on my current rack, sometimes it does get a little unstable there. The coating on both the spotter arms and the J hooks, I believe is UHMW, but may be some type of nylon potentially. But there is coating for both attachments on all surfaces of the inside to protect the rack. While shooting some B-roll, I noticed something just now that I didn't catch initially, because at first I was using this barbell with the wider collars. Now I just tried this competition style bar that has thinner collars, and you can see here that the knurled knob on the J cups runs into the plate, and that happens on both sides. You can even see the gap. So that's obviously not good if you have that type of bar. A potential workaround for that is to flip the J cups to the inside, and that should solve it, but there might be another potential issue with that. If you're using a super wide grip, there could potentially be contact with your hand and the knurled knob if it's on this side. But for most scenarios, I don't think that would be the case. And I guess you could say that the same thing applies to the spotter arms as well, but it's not as big of an issue as with the J cups. The one thing I'll also mention about the spotter arms, and you may notice I have it turned sideways. This is how you would set up dips. So you would have both of the spotter arms like this, one on the other side, and you take these steel rods with the threaded nut and put it in to the desired width, tighten it, and you're able to do dips. And that is a really cool, efficient use of space. And it's well knurled on both the rod itself as well as the threaded nut. There's a protective piece on here as well as on the nut itself. And the other benefit of these is that you can put it anywhere on your rack that there's a hole. So a common place I think that people will use this for is on the top for pull-ups. You could take these off or just keep these on the outside. It's versatile, so you can kind of figure out different uses for it. As we move to the side of the rack, we can see some more attachments here. And this one is pretty cool. This is the Landmine Attachment, which is secured with a threaded nut on the other side of the column. And this part here is magnetic. So when you're not using it, you can store it up and out of the way, which is great for keeping your setup clean. Also, importantly, there is a protective insert here to protect the sleeve of your barbell. And it has the typical pivot motion like this and like this. So no issues with range of motion there. And you could also take this out and put it on any of the posts. Over here, of course, we have the standard weight plate holders, which you can, decide which height you want each one at. Pretty standard, nothing really special about it, but it matches the black color and aesthetic, and they are steel. Coming to the other side of the rack, you of course have 4 additional weight storage pegs for a total of 8. And over here on the back, you have a barbell holder, which you can install on either side on the back of the rack. And it too has protective plastic to protect your barbell sleeve. And inside the rack, you have storage options, which is important to kind of keep your whole gym area nice and organized. And it's all built into the rack, so you don't necessarily have to invest in, say, something like wall control or some type of separate accessory storage system, just keeping everything with the whole compact theme. So you have this style of pegboard, which has these inserts, which these kind of pawn-shaped little items go in and insert down into it, and you can put them in any of these slots. And you might also notice that there's more of these slots on the shrouding, so giving you even more options to hang your accessories. Below that, you have a storage shelf where you can just put other items as needed. Now, if you'll join me down here, crisscross applesauce, and take a look at the different accessories, mostly cable accessories, that also come with the C20. We got several items. This right here is pretty cool. It's basically used to do assisted dips or assisted pull-ups. You string this between the pulleys and add the amount of weight that you want to take off of your weight. You got, of course, the D handles, which are nice, knurled, and aluminum, lightweight. Got the chrome finish, and you got 3 or 4 different main handles. And I should note that all of these are aluminum, and generally I would usually think of like steel handles as like more premium, but after being here and using these aluminum pulleys, I really am beginning to appreciate the more lightweight design, especially when you have it attached to the pulley. Sometimes with those heavier attachments, especially heavier lap bars, it'll pull down and the weight stack will come up a little bit. So if you go to change the weight, the stack will kind of come up on you. So that does not happen with these. You got the straight short bar here, the easy curl bar, which is good, but I wish they kind of continued the knurl right there, so you will get a little bit of a gap. Not a huge deal, but room for improvement there. You got a classic lat pull-down bar and a nice close grip bar here. Now this one is actually steel, more heavy duty, but usually you won't have this hanging vertically, at least the way I use it. I probably would use this just for rows, though I guess if you're doing it lat pull down style, you might have that issue of it pulling the stack a little bit. You got a classic cable rope right here. Don't need anything fancy for that. It's tried and true. And we got some magnetic collars and just some extension chains, carabiners, and it also comes with a couple of ankle straps. Overall, I'm definitely impressed with the C20. I think Force USA did a great job of creating this with possibly, I would say, a more serious lifter in mind, thanks to the 3x3 1-inch hole uprights, and having access to those third-party attachments from Rogue or others is going to give a lot of people, such as myself, a feeling of not being as locked in like you might feel with, say, the G series units, which use the 2x2-inch uprights. Also, I just love the Smith machine. That's really one of the highlights for me. The arms, of course, add a whole lot of versatility to the different types of cable exercises you can do and get rid of certain restrictions that you might otherwise have in terms of range of motion. And additionally, of course, the ability to have potentially up to a 300-pound weight stack and use that as a 1-to-1 ratio and get up to 600 pounds of field weight, especially if you opt for the leg press and sliding bench, is really cool as well.